Well, howdy, hey. Howdy, almost Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Probably a lot of you went to Halloween parties this last weekend. I'm going to one this weekend. Yay. And I'm hosting a ritual. It's the first time I'm doing a ritual at a party. Mm. And I'm reading tarot cards too. So that'll be like super fun, super fun. Something I've noticed about Pisces placements, just for your information, we play with our hair a lot. We play with our nose a lot. I itch my face a lot, and I play with my hair a lot. What? I feel like it's a Libra thing too. Maybe it's just a Venus thing, but still, I totally do it. So I thought, well, let's talk about the mundane astrology. So, what that means is I'm going to talk to you about what's going on in the sky right now. And then you can be like, oh, that's why. Like a lot of times, that's how people feel. It can be like really like, oh, I'm so happy that I'm not the only one feeling this way. So I'm gonna share my screen and show you the transits so that you can see them. Boop, boop. Yeah, share my screen with the transits, making sure that it's just the transits. Okay, and I've got to be silly. Sometimes when there feels like there's a lot going on, you just kind of have to go silly with it, right? You just kind of have to make fun of yourself for being silly. So this is the sky right now. You're welcome, everyone. This is your sky. So coming up, and I think, is it in 2 days? Heck, yeah, you see this moon? You see that moon up in there? On the 31st, on Halloween, we've got a new moon in Scorpio. I mean, could it be more appropriate? Why, Lacey? Why is it appropriate for Scorpio to be popping on Halloween? Because y'all, Scorpio is the sign of like the esoteric, the deep, the dark, the I don't want people to see what I can't control, right? It is the sign of wanting to be in control, wanting to be in, not taken, not caught off guard, right? Because Scorpio hates that, so they don't like it. I have an interesting Scorpio thing. I have Uranus in Scorpio in my natal chart, and it's the only thing in Scorpio. So what that looks like for me is Uranus is the modern day ruler of Aquarius, of Aquarians. So kind of Scorpio has an overlay, has something to say to my Aquarius sun and Mercury in the 11th, which means that I like to share about my epiphanies that have to do with the taboo. That's a Scorpio thing, y'all. Scorpios are usually on a spectrum, right? Between I've experienced all of it and I've experienced none of it, and I'm afraid to, right? Because Scorpio has to do with fears. It has to do with the subconscious. It is a water psychic sign. There will be a lot of Scorpios who are like, yeah, like I got a gut feeling. I just knew, right? And so they have that a lot. And so sometimes it can be confusing for water signs in particular, but maybe less Scorpio. But what tends to happen is when we're younger and we suspect something's up and we talk about it, sometimes adults will be like, no, that's not what's going on. Like they don't want to deal with it and they don't want to burden you with it. So you'll be told, oh, no, it's fine. When your gut is reading the energy and shit ain't fine, right? So it. So it's a place in our lives that maybe we were younger, we were gaslit, but the older we get, I think the more we sort of understand, they just, now that I am an adult, I'm like, oh, you didn't want me to have to deal with your heaviness or baggage, right? That's what was going on. So Scorpios, do you have baggage? It's mostly Scorpios are going to have profound transformations in their lifetime, right? So new moon in Scorpio, what that means is sort of a new lease on life, right? What do you need to burn down and what needs to grow in its place? What have you been holding on to, thinking it's going to get better for so long that you've been maybe self sabotaging around, right? That's been going through my mind big time. Where am I self sabotaging? Where am I holding myself back because of others? I feel like others will be disappointed in me or upset that I'm doing things without them, right? Or things like my in even in my own private life, right? Like my husband, um we are non-monogamous, right? And he has dates that he goes on, which means that I have the choice to support him or not, right? That's the deep deep. The deep deep is I can either not be transparent and then not speak up, about all the feelings, right? Or I can be transparent and say, oh, hey, these are my feelings about this, right? Without worrying how he's going to take it. Now, always, if you are going to talk to someone about deep and vulnerable things and you're making them feel, I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and you're making them feel not safe to share, you're doing it wrong, right? People have to be able to share with you, have to be able to share with us, right? You have to be able to do that. And if you're in a situation where you don't feel like it's safe to share, then that is a problem, right? Or if you're self sabotaging because you're kind of making up for somebody else, right? That's a problem, right? So I really feel like what's going on in the air right now is a couple of things as I just not share my stop sharing my screen. But yes, talk Scorpio new moons is talking about the taboo, right? That's what it's doing. It's talking about fears. It's talking about things that are coming up in your subconscious. A big thing with fixed signs is it takes a while for things to dawn on them, right? On us. I'm a fixed sign Aquarius. For me, I think it's a little bit easier than, say, Scorpio and Taurus and even Leo because air and fire signs tend to be more quick because we're a little more detached, right? Aquarius may be the quickest because they're really detached, right? They're really like, oh, I see everything from her perspective. I just don't get bogged down, right? Is how it feels. But other signs, water and earth signs, they get attached, right? They get merged. They need more time for things to settle, for the water temperature to even out, right? If you're putting hot water in, cold water in to tepid water, then, it's going to be shocked and it's going to be uncomfortable, right? So remember that when you are talking to fixed signs, sometimes they may not get it right away. Sometimes you may need to repeat yourself a couple of times, or stop talking about it altogether and then, let them come to their own conclusions, right? Letting go of that control. Scorpio, the sign of control, right? It's a place where we cringe. If anybody ever saw us talking about this, thinking about this, right? Sexual things, I'd cringe if everyone knew, right? My finances, I'd cringe if everyone knew how much debt I had, right? It would look like, I'm not on top of my shit. I'm not a responsible adult, right? There's all these things that come up in that Scorpio sector of our lives. So, Newman and Scorpio, how have you been sabotaging yourself for the sake of control, for the sake of you keeping control? And that could be demeaning yourself, right? Like, I definitely demean myself often when I'm in a group of people and I think no one's going to be down with me being an astrologer, an intuitive person, right? I'll be like, meh, like I would call myself woo woo, right? And I'm subtly sabotaging myself. I am making it okay for people to not take me seriously in that way, right? So that's self sabotage. Self sabotage is when you make yourself small for someone else so that they can feel big and in control, right? Um, and so another thing that's going on with this self sabotage, right? And the letting go of control is we've got two control planets up in that sky, right? We've got Mars in the sign of Cancer, right? So Mars has been going through Cancer. It's going to go into Leo, then it's going to retrograde, go back through the sign of Cancer. So we're going to be revisiting these thoughts again very soon, like over the next like 3 months, maybe, you know. How long is it going to be in there? I mean, I could look, but anyway, as long as Mars is in Cancer, Mars, in order to take action, is motivated by family, is motivated by caring, is motivated by nursing, is motivated by tough on the outside, soft on the inside. People who I know who have Mars in Cancer natally, they tend to have grown up in places where people would make fun of them and they were expected to roll with the punches, right? What are you doing? Are you drawing ghosts, kid? Why are you drawing ghosts for, right? And then the kid gets made fun of, and the adults are all thinking that they're all in on it. That's just family. That's just Uncle Nicky. That's just Uncle Robert, right? That's just Uncle whoever making fun of me, and that's how everybody kind of like takes it. So Mars and Cancer natives also tend to be pretty sensitive, right? Because again, it's a water sign. We are talking about intuition. We are talking about, those gut feelings, those psychic vibes. So Mars in Cancer has a hard time doing things for itself. It prefers to do things for other people. And then also Cardinal is quick when it springs into action when it sees an opportunity or an opening. So sometimes it can push other people, right? Mars is pushy. Sorry. Mars is pushy. Whatever. I'm not an Aries or anything pushy person sometimes. But yes, right? So Mars is opposing Pluto. Look at that. 28 to 29 degrees. I noticed. So again, we're looking at power struggles, right? Anytime Mars is either conjunct, which means in the same sign or within close proximity, especially within like a 4-degree orb. So like if Pluto is at 29 degrees, then when Mars is at like 27, 28, 29, and then maybe 0 degrees, 1, 2, right? If Mars and Pluto are together, that close of proximity, then you have a conjunction, and that's also a hard aspect. And then also anytime Mars is going to be in previous times cardinal signs, right? Then it would have been squaring, which causes friction, which causes us to feel like we have to act, like we have to do something. Natives, people who are born with a Mars-Pluto square, they tend to have restless energy. I think Jennifer Aniston, right, has a Mars-Pluto, right, where there's a strong martial, certain presence about them, if you will. So we have an opposition happening. So when an opposition happens in astrology, what's happening is you have to answer the front door and the back door at the same time. Frustrating, right? So you have to learn how to balance it, right? So for me, it looks like there is no actual urgency, right? Or there is urgency and there are things that are important, but they may not be as important to other people. So you need to find a way to not put that on them, right? And then if somebody does let you down because of urgency, right? Something is due, then you need to find a balance of where am I self-sabotaging? Where did I not inform, right? Where did I not speak up? You've got to find a balance though, right? And balance is always our life's purpose, right? Our life's thing. So Mars opposite Pluto, you may be finding this week and probably a little bit into next week too, because these are big energies. Mars and Pluto is explosive energy, right? That's like igniting a bomb. And so either you might be witnessing other people igniting their own bombs and blowing up their life, which could be a good thing, right? If you are in an abusive relationship or in a relationship where you're putting in a lot of the work and the other person isn't putting in the same amount of work, blow that shit up. You have to allow it. That's what's happening. The universe is conspiring for things to blow up so that it can be demolished, have a tower moment, tarot cards, if you will, so that you can have a clear vision on what is stable, what is standing, right? And what needed to collapse. And I think we get really afraid of thinking of things collapsing or right? Because, oh man, then your finances may get messed up, right? Your relationships get messed up, right? All these things. But really, sometimes it's a good thing to let things fall apart, let other people fall apart. I am a notorious people pleaser and saver. I can save you, I say to myself, right? Not a thing. I can't, right? So letting other people be in their misery that you can't control, they have to do their own work, right? So allowing people to have blow up moments, right? You may find power struggles. Okay, power struggles in the home can look like I'm arguing with my child, right? I'm arguing with my spouse, right? I'm arguing at home. And a lot of us work from home. So maybe you could be arguing with people who you work with, right? I mean, and then arguing, it varies, right? Pluto extremifies things for people who are already looking at themselves, their lives, and their soul, and they're trying to sort of make right choices, make best decisions. People kind of experience this happening outside of themselves and in other people's lives. Um, but where Yeah. So it happens to varying degrees, right? Because Scorpio is varying degrees of fear, right? I don't want anyone to look at it, see it. I don't want any care for this wound. I'd like to hide this wound. I'd like to bury this wound forever, right? You have that going on, people who are in that world. And then you have people sort of on the opposite end who are like, ooh, I realize that I've been hurting myself and sabotaging myself, right? I'm talking about me. I'm on the good end, you guys. I say humbly. But yeah, so there's extremes, with what's popping. This is definitely going to be popping on around election time. It's going to be popping, right? Mars goes into Leo, but whew, it's still going to be popping, right? Um, so power struggles. So if you are experiencing power struggles or areas of life that are being exposed that you're afraid to talk about, or you're noticing, for me as an Aries Mars ruled person, I've been noticing jealousy seems to pop up for me because Pluto and Scorpio also deal with jealous topics, right? Because it deals with the deeply sexual. And when we have sex with somebody, oftentimes we'll feel like we own them. They owe us, right? We owe them. That is a huge sex topic, right? Who owns who, right? Just has been that way for forever, right? So when you go deep with someone, sometimes it feels like, "Ah, I shared everything with you. I gave you everything." And then you just go and give it to somebody else, right? That is a power struggle, right? A Mars Pluto opposition. And only you know what needs to be said, what needs to be addressed, right? Sometimes I'll journal it out first, talk it out first, right? Do things first. If you have a therapist it out first, right? Um, but yeah, having power struggles. You may be finding power struggles between work and home, especially, right? A mom and business, right? Or moms, you might be feeling a little bit torn into work or home, right? Those are sort of these themes. Um, Power struggles on where to put the money, right? Cancer is the flow of money. How do I use the resources that I have, right? How do I use it up? I use it, right? And so maybe you see somebody leaving something to waste that you're like, they're just wasting it, and it's frustrating. How about I take control, right? Like those are things. And I think the best way or a way that I have found to sort of surrender to these themes of control issues, right, is one, being more transparent with feelings. Sometimes people will come and they will be like, this is your fault. You did this to me, right? And then you are faced with taking that on or not, but recognizing your part. But I think the overall cure for uh, control is forgiveness for yourself, and then forgiveness for others. So, what do I mean by forgiveness? I learned a long time ago um, that I think in hieroglyphs, right, the word for forgiveness was a shepherd's staff, right, which is the crook that controls the sheep, and then a fence which separates you from your neighbor. This is my land, this is your land, right? And so it was something like, I mean, I could be butchering this, but it was still an awesome sentiment and changed my mind on forever how like forgiveness is thought of. But it was to remove the rod and the fence that separates me from you, right? I have every right, every authority. Staff is a symbol of authority, right? Because it can control. I have every authority, every right to separate myself from you, right? Every right. But I'm going to remove the fence that separates. And I think what that does not mean is that if you are being abused, continue to be in that abuse. If you are recognizing ways in which you've been taken for granted or abused, right? It is okay to say, hey, I have noticed these things. I have allowed myself to be taken advantage of in these ways. I will be setting down a boundary for not allowing myself to do that anymore. And I'm going to forgive myself and you for the ill will that gets brought up because I didn't know this till now, right? Remember, Scorpio, right? Scorpio takes things for a while for things to dawn on them, you know? So Scorpios, you may really be realizing the ways in which you thought to yourself, "Oh, I don't need pleasure. I don't need sex. I don't need a spiritual life. I don't need, right? All these sort of Scorpio taboo things. You could be saying, I don't need these things, but really you do, right? Really, those are things that are meant for you to explore. If you have a North Node in Scorpio, you really meant to explore the taboo and dive to the deep depths and be kinky in safe ways. Um, so with those things comes jealousy, right? So you need to recognizing ways in which you have been sort of complicit with other people in allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, or how have you taken advantage of people, right? That may be the hardest one, right? Acknowledging the ways in which I've taken advantage of, right? Ways in which I take advantage is like my husband, he is so kind. That guy I could go out and date the world and he wouldn't date a single soul if he thought it was going to hurt my feelings at all or I would be jealous at all, right? I can control with my feelings, right? And so those are things that I realized a long time ago that I was doing. You know, sometimes it's okay to be like, hey, I'm not ready to talk right now. I'm not ready to deal right now. I'll be ready to deal with it later, right? There, but you still have to deal with it, you know? But realize the ways in which your attitude, you're doing it on purpose to control the other. It's one thing to need space to think about things. It's another thing to be like, I'm never right. Bossy. The energy is accusatory, blamey, shamey, right? That's the energy that one is in usually, right? You blame, right? That's because when forgiveness isn't there, then that fills up the space. So we're being asked to really look at how have I been self-sabotaging? How have I been allowing and how have I been controlling? How have I been living in fear? Eight of Swords material there, right? How have I been living in fear? So if you are picking up on these things, good. Pick up on these things. I mean, some good stuff here we do have that are kind of making this time a little bit easy is to see we've got that Neptune. So yes, we've got that Mars Pluto opposition, but we've also got a positive, right? A Sessi quadrant to Saturn here still gives slowness to boundaries a little bit, you know. Sessi quadrant is like those two things are fitting together and they're telling a similar story. So, and that only lasts for like a couple of degrees. So that's a hard aspect still, but it's a softer, harder aspect. So what's the reality? Saturn asks, what's the real deal? What's really going on? How do you really feel in the sign of Pisces, right? Yeah. And then Neptune here. So Neptune is sort of the confuser of things. Neptune deals in movies, and we all know movie magic, right? Nobody can fly. Yes, we can make you look like you can fly, right? So it can kind of deal with concepts of delusion. It also deals in concepts of forgiveness again, of highest self, best health. Neptune is where we long to transcend with the universe, right? With God, with spirit, right? And then therefore others, everyone, right? That's karma, right? That's enlightenment. Those are the themes that Neptune deals with, enlightenment. And so it can give us like, yeah, I'm totally enlightened when you're totally not sometimes, you know? So Neptune is helping us in the way of we can use our imagination more. You might be having more dreams lately too. You might be because the veil is thinning culturally. It's always been recognized that this is the time of year when you can communicate more quickly with your ancestors, with those who have passed on to the other side. You might be having more dreams, talking to the other side. So paying attention to your dreams is really important right now. But yeah, that Neptune will also give us psychic feeling too, because Neptune is like telepathy, right? Neptune is that thing when you're watching a movie and they're not saying directly what they're feeling, but you can see it on their face. That's kind of Neptunian, right? But yeah, it gives a glamour. So it can also give some confusion. It can also be like things happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of yet that, maybe we'll be aware of. But I think Neptune's kind of helping and making things a little bit softer. Pisces is a softer sign. Pisces is a sign that wants to be at the same water temperature as everyone else. It sees the possibility, it sees the idealism that is present in the world. So Neptune here is kind of helping us to maybe even imagine putting our shoe on the other foot and then giving ourselves compassion, right? Anytime you are giving yourself compassion, right? The more that will carry over into others. The way you interact with others, right? It will carry over there. So be compassionate with yourself, right? Oh, please, for me, because then it makes the world a better place when you're compassionate with yourself. And the other thing we've got going on is Mars in trine to Mercury. So it makes it a little bit easier to talk about these things, put our finger on things, right? I think that's why I'm having these breakthroughs, is because Mercury is right here and it's like, Mercury is messages. So we have more of an availability to hear the messages from the other side, right? We're talking water, and water is psychic, water is intuitive, water is what connects you to everything and everyone, right? Water signs are that. And that's why they have to be careful with their energy. If you're letting, just anyone into your presence, into your life, you're going to take on their energy. So please sage yourself. Lacey, how do I sage myself, you ask? Well, if you have a fire burning kind of nonstop, like I do over here on the other side of my microphone, I'm going to grab some water. I'm going to take my sage here, right? Sage. And then we're going to do this. So this is a spiritual hygiene thing that you can do, right? And then you just roll that around yourself, right? Roll that air, that sage, right? And it really just has to do with the story, right? The story of sage is it clears, right? And so if you allow that story to take faith in your life, then it clears. Imagination is paramount to faith, I would say. Maybe not paramount. It's faith. Neptune, I once heard that Jupiter is the planet that regards our beliefs, right? It's the tangible beliefs. This is what I believe, right? The things that we can more easily put our finger on and say. Neptune, on the other hand, is faith, things unseen. I believe it, not because I can see it, but because I experience it. I feel it. My body temperature changes. My feelings in my body change. Water signs, pay attention to how your body feels. Are you leaning in? Are you backing away? Are you getting hot? Are you getting cold? Right? Pay attention to your body temperature right now, because that can tell you when things are getting heated, right? When things are on, when things are off. If you're an air sign and you don't have a lot of water, I mean, hopefully You still have water bits, so still sage and take care of your water bits. All right. So, new moon. What are you no longer going to sabotage yourself about? Mars, Pluto, expect power struggles within yourself, with others, or people around you. And what is the realities, right? How can you transcend? The other thing we've got going on is Uranus here. See that? Uranus sextiling that Mars and trining. So sextiles and trines are flows. That means it kind of gives us a break in a way, right? Uranus is a sign of surprise, motherfucker, right? So, and it's also the sign of independence and epiphanies and rapid evolutions, right? It kind of works a little bit like a north nodes in that way, right? Where it's north node, the nodes are more about like a portal, things happening rapidly, but Uranus can make things happen quick, right? Uranus also rules like technology and computers. Like Mercury is the messages that go back and forth, and Uranus is the tech itself. So if your tech starts messing up, that could be why. But and then Uranus is opposite Mercury right now. So people could be telling you things that are opposite of the epiphanies that you're having, that are opposite, or this is also tech issues, actually. This is a definite tech issues. You might definitely be experiencing that right now. I know I definitely have. So being down with that. But yeah, epiphanies. So I know I've been having them, things that I have taken for granted, right? Taurus is the sign of, it's a fixed sign. It's the sign of certainty. It's the sign of reliability. It's the sign of, if you've known Taurus people recently, like within the last 7 years, 5 years, whenever Uranus went into Taurus, you may have been noticing that they're less reliable. They're less dependable, because things kind of keep popping up, right? Like things that normally they would be solid on, have they been getting shocked? Well, their life has been getting, shifted around and changed around. That's Uranus's doing. And Uranus wants things to move forward. It's futuristic. It's future thinking, right? As it rules the sign of Aquarius, one of the rulers. So forward thinking when it comes to traditional things is what that one's giving. So maybe things that you thought were always sure and certain, right? Like things that shifted me were things like, marriage between a man and a woman, right? That got totally shifted for me, right? Where I'm like, oh, maybe not, maybe that isn't completely true, all the time, right? It's not at all, actually. But yeah. So things like that, I've been getting shifted with that transit. So expect to get esoteric with it. This Halloween is going to be super good for esoteric things. Look at all that happening in Scorpio. Definitely do some tarot cards. Spiritual hygiene. So before calling the spirits in, please read a book. Know how to do that first, right? Always closed. You always want to open. So when doing witchcraft, we cast a spell of protection, right? And then we do our spiritual work there. And that is so we won't have influences that are negative coming to us, right? That's why you make that circle of protection. Some people use salt, right? Salt is awesome, maybe super awesome on this night. And then you make sure that the people you want to talk to are the people you want to talk to. If you're going to do a Ouija board and you're like, oh man, I don't know, because exorcism made that stuff extra scary for people, because before The Exorcist came out, they were called talking boards, and Ouija is a child's game, right? So exorcism is what made that scary and crazy, and why people get afraid of it now is because of that movie. But if you're going to talk to them, so if you're nervous, okay, if you're going to do a Ouija board, if you're going to be doing some divination of any kind, do with hygiene. So cleanse your space, sage that action, sage the place where you're going to be doing your magical work, right? Add a bonus, put salt around yourself, right? Salt is through the years been known to purify, cleanse, preserve, right? So can't cross that border, right? It's in movies too. It's fun. It's cute, right? Because there's a thing. So you always want to open and then you always want to close. So after you cast your spell of protection and then you ask to commune with your grandmas and your grandpas or your parents, right? Do it with gratitude. Do it with a light heart. If you start to feel yourself feel heavy and it like doesn't feel good, then end it, right? Um, and the way that you end is by closing. So you are still in your magic circle protection, and then when you're done, you're like, thanks for joining me, everyone. Please go cross back over. Thank you for joining me. And then I now close the circle, right? And there's different magical ways to do that, but just say it and then open your circle. So the same way that you cast it, now you cut it and you go counterclockwise, right? And then nothing is able to touch you because and then sage yourself again, right? Saging cleanses, right? If you're still having issues in your mind, right? If you're still like, oh, I don't know, you're still feeling nervous, um, get some black tourmaline or obsidian and then carry that around with you. Pyrite, right? Those are things that absorb negative energy, absorb the negative feelings. That's the story. So carry those around with you. And then allow them to do their work, if you will. All right. If you are nervous about communing with the dead, which is interesting because it's been done since time immemorial. This has always been a thing at this time of year. If you're feeling nervous about it, don't do it. If you are nervous about it, do it with a friend, do it with somebody who knows, right? What to do. Sometimes you can like imagine dusting yourself off too after you do spiritual work, right? That's another way to do it. If you're not hearing anything or you're like, oh, I don't know, you can use tarot cards. Get yourself or your friend some tarot cards and then, shift some tarot cards and then Google, what does King of Wands mean, right? And you can look at it that way. There's lots of ways to do this. But it's going to be a really good time to do it. So, because all that Scorpio. So now's the time to, yeah, commune with the dead, commune with your angels, right? Commune with your guides, right? Let your spirit commune with others, right? You have a lot of guidance and a lot of protection and a lot of spirits in this world who care about you deeply. So don't ever believe the lie that you're not cared about, that you're not loved. And don't sabotage yourself. Start noticing the ways in which you've been sabotaging yourself and be transparent, right? Be transparent. If you have an outburst, say you're sorry, right? Create a safe space, right? If you have hard things to talk about, have you and the other person there and then cast a magic spell of protection and then set yourself up to be able to hear even the hard things, right? It's kinds of ways to put yourself in a good mind space before dealing with heavy subjects. So I hope you have an amazingly happy Halloween. I was like, do I even have my little witch hat around me? And I don't. But have a happy Halloween. Have a great time going and doing all the festivities, taking out the kiddos, giving candy to the kiddos. It's the best holiday. I just love it. And have fun, engaging with a little bit of scary scare. I will talk to y'all later. Bye. Oh, and meeting for all. Okay. Bye.